Alaska, Tennessee, Arizona, Maine, Wyoming. There they are. That is the list in the first 15 seconds, because I have watched how these videos usually go. Somebody sits through the whole thing waiting for the names, gives up, and writes them in the comments himself, so the next person does not have to. That man is doing the work the video is supposed to do. So there is your list, and now we can spend the rest of our time on the only question that actually matters, which is whether any of them still deserve to be on it. My name is Hank. I sold up in the lower 48, bought raw land, and I have spent a long time now learning the difference between a state that leaves you alone and a state that has simply not got around to you yet. Those are not the same thing, and the gap between them is where people lose their money. So we are going to take all five, one at a time. What the land actually costs, what the county will actually let you build, and the part that decides everything, which is what the people who already live there say when somebody posts a video like this one. Because on one of these five, residents turn up in the comments in numbers to say plainly that it is not true anymore. Stay for that one, and stay to the end, because there is a sixth state that belongs on this list, far more than one of the five, and nobody put it there. If you know somebody who has a browser tab open on a land listing right now, send them this first. That is the only thing I will ask of you up front. Alaska. Land in Alaska is genuinely cheap, and the reason is not a secret and not a scam. It is cheap because almost nobody wants it, and almost nobody wants it because getting to it is the expensive part. You are not buying a parcel. You are buying a parcel plus a permanent logistics problem. The state runs land sales, and there are borough parcels that sell for numbers that look like a misprint if you are used to mainland prices. Large parts of the state have no borough government at all, which means no zoning and no building inspector in any form you would recognize. Nobody is coming out to look at your foundation. Nobody is coming out at all. It is also worth knowing how you actually get hold of that ground, because it does not work like buying a house. The state runs its own land offerings, and a fair amount of what changes hands is sold through public sale rather than sitting on a listing site waiting for you. That means the process rewards somebody who has already done the homework and is ready when a parcel comes up, and it punishes somebody browsing on a Sunday evening. Know before you look whether the parcel you are excited about is reachable by road, by river, or only by aircraft, because that single line decides what the place will cost you for the rest of your life there. That is the whole pitch, and it is real. Here is the part they skip. Outside Fairbanks, Anchorage, and Juneau, a great deal of what you need has to be flown in. A man who lives there put it exactly that way underneath the video I am recreating today. Not trucked, flown. Every sheet of plywood, every roll of insulation, every appliance carries an air freight bill, and that bill does not care that your land was cheap. Fuel for heat is the same story, and you will burn a lot of it. And one thing that has genuinely changed, and the older videos have not caught up, the internet problem is largely solved. Satellite service reaches most of the state now, and Alaskans in those comments were quick to point it out. So the joke about having no connection is out of date. The winter is not. There is one more thing about Alaska that never makes these videos, and for anybody over 60, it is the whole decision. Distance to medical care. A parcel that is beautiful and cheap in 40 minutes of flying from the nearest clinic is a completely different proposition at 70 than it was at 40. That is not a reason to rule it out. It is a reason to look at the map twice and to look at it in February rather than in July. Be honest about what 9 months of that does to a person who has never lived it. The land will not break you. The dark and the cost of staying warm might. Tennessee, this is the one I told you to wait for, and it is the reason this whole video needed remaking. The pitch is no state income tax, mild winters, green hills, and counties that never bothered with zoning. The tax part is true. Tennessee does not tax earned income. Hold on to that, because a resident in those comments said something close to this, that the only thing in the video which was still true was the tax. Here is what the people who live there actually wrote. One man had just finished building a house in the Tennessee mountains. He explained that a county having no zoning does not mean a county having no rules, because many of them have passed subdivision regulations instead, which reach building standards through a side door. He said tiny homes are being restricted in most places up there, and then he gave the numbers, which is what makes it worth listening to. He bought 8.5 acres about 5 years ago for $50,000, and he sold that same ground for $200,000. Farmland near him went from about $4,500 an acre to roughly $12,500. Another resident, a woman who has been hunting for exactly the kind of country place these videos describe, said the affordable ones are gone almost immediately, and the only thing left at a sane price is a mountainside covered in trees. Another put it in 6 words. Tennessee is expensive because everyone moved there. That is the mechanism, and it is worth understanding because it will happen to the next state on somebody's list. A place gets named as the cheap free one. Enough people believe it. The buying pressure arrives before the infrastructure does. The county starts writing rules to cope with what showed up, and the thing that made it attractive is gone inside about 5 years. Tennessee did not betray anybody. Tennessee got discovered. That same man left behind a sentence I have not been able to put down since I read it. He said that if your land is zoned, you do not really own it, you are renting it from the county. You can argue with that as a matter of law, and you would probably win. As a description of how it feels the first time somebody tells you what you may and may not put on ground you paid for outright. He is not wrong, and every person who has been through it knows exactly what he means. And be careful with the word unzoned generally, because it does a lot of quiet work in these videos. A county with no zoning still very likely has a septic permit, a health department with an opinion about your wastewater, a state electrical requirement if you ever connect to a grid, and a road authority with a view on your driveway. Unzoned means nobody is telling you what category of building may stand there. It does not mean nobody is coming. None of that means do not go. It means do not go on the strength of a video, including this one, without pulling the current subdivision regulations for the specific county you are looking at. Not the state, the county, Arizona. Now, I have to be straight with you about something because if you watch enough of these, you will notice it yourself, and it deserves an honest answer. Arizona turns up on the free and easy lists. Arizona also turns up on the lists of states cracking down on off-grid living. Somebody in the comments spotted exactly that and said so, that 2 videos earlier the same channel had told him Arizona was practically illegal and now it was practically free. Both of those are true, and the reason is that Arizona is not one place. It is a state where the rules are set at the county level, and the difference between 2 counties can be the difference between build what you like and hire a lawyer. In the rural counties with light regulation, you can put up an owner-built home with very little interference. In the counties around the big population centers, you are in permit territory like anywhere else. Then there is water, which is the real Arizona question and the one the fantasy videos never touch. It is the desert. Your water is either hauled or it comes from a well that has to be drilled deep, and neither of those is a small line in the budget. People arrive picturing solar panels in a cabin and leave over water. The rainwater rules are worth checking rather than assuming, because they vary and because they are the thing people get most confidently wrong in both directions. The other Arizona thing worth saying out loud, and if you have only just found this, my name is Hank, and I am the one who says the unpopular part. The heat is not a joke, and it is not a personality test. Summer in the low desert is a genuine health matter for an older body, and off-grid means you are cooling that building on power you generated yourself, in the season when you need the most of it and the afternoon storms are cutting your production. People plan their whole solar array around keeping the lights on and then discover the real load was staying alive in August. Arizona is neither the promised land nor the police state. It is a state where the answer is entirely determined by which county line you happen to be standing behind, and any video that gives you one answer for the whole state is not helping you. Maine. Maine is the quiet one on this list and in some ways the most honest. Land is cheap in the north, there is an enormous amount of it, and plenty of the small towns have no zoning to speak of. It is green, it is wooded, there is water everywhere, and it does not have the crowd problem Tennessee has. The catch is not legal. It is thermal and it is calendar. Heating a house through a Maine winter is a serious annual expense, and if you are off-grid, it is also a serious annual labor. Firewood is not free. It is cheap in money and very expensive in your back, and your back is not getting younger. That is the whole economics of Maine off-grid living in one sentence. The other half is your build season. You do not get 12 months. Between the frozen ground at one end and the mud at the other, you get a working window, and everything you did not finish inside that window waits until next year. People who move up from a warmer state routinely underestimate this and lose an entire season learning it. There is a third thing, and it is the one that catches people who did all their looking online: access. A great many of those cheap northern parcels sit on private roads, and a private road is maintained by the people on it, which in winter means plowed by the people on it. Ask before you buy who owns that road, who plows it, what it costs, and what happens if the neighbor who has always done it decides to stop. A parcel you cannot reach in February is not a cheap parcel, it is a seasonal campsite you paid full price for. Maine will leave you alone. Maine will also make you earn it every single winter. Wyoming. Wyoming is the one that most often deserves its reputation. Very few people, enormous amounts of open country, no state income tax, and counties where nobody is going to come and inspect the cabin you built for yourself. Two things stand between you and that picture, and only one of them is famous. The famous one is the wind. A woman who lives there described it as a lifestyle rather than a weather condition, which is the most accurate thing anybody has said about Wyoming. It is not an occasional storm. It is a permanent fact that decides what you build, how you anchor it, and which direction the door faces. The one that actually stops people is water, and this is the part I want you to hear properly. Wyoming water is administered by the state engineer under a doctrine called prior appropriation, which comes down to first in time, first in right. Water is treated separately from the land you own. Before you drill a well, you file an application with the state engineer's office for a permit to appropriate groundwater. In practice, most of those are granted as a matter of routine, but it is a permit. It can be refused if it is judged not to be in the public interest, and in a designated groundwater control area, your application goes out for public notice and comment. So here is where I want to put you, and then I want you to tell me the truth about it. You have found the parcel, the price is right, the view is right, the county does not care what you build. There is no well on it yet and no proof of one. The seller says everybody around here drills and hits water. Do you write the check on that, or do you spend money and weeks on a permit application and a driller's opinion before you own a thing, knowing somebody else might buy it while you wait? Be honest, because most of us say we would wait, and most of us write the check. Tell me in the comments which one you actually are. If you have drilled a dry hole, say so plainly, because that comment is worth more to the person reading this tonight than anything I have said so far. And while we are being precise about Wyoming, no state income tax does not mean no tax. The state still funds itself, and it does that through property tax and sales tax and a great deal of mineral revenue. On a modest cabin on cheap ground, the property bill is usually small. It is simply not zero, and I have watched people arrive genuinely believing it would be. Then there is elevation, which quietly rewrites the build. Snow load on the roof, a shorter growing season than the latitude suggests, and a real distance to a hospital or even a hardware store for most of the places that are actually cheap. Wyoming does leave you alone. Being left alone and being far from help are the same sentence read from two different ends. Now the sixth state, and this is the one that annoys me. Missouri is not on this list, and it should be. A man in those comments mentioned, almost in passing, that his property tax comes to $86 a year on 5 acres and a cabin in the southern part of the state. $86 for the year. That is not a typo, and nobody made a video about it. Southern Missouri has cheap ground, real water, a growing season that actually grows things, counties with light regulation, and winters that will not try to kill you. It does not have a nickname, it does not trend, and it has not been discovered in the way Tennessee was discovered, which is precisely the argument for looking at it now rather than in 5 years when somebody has finally made the video and the price has already moved. I am not telling you Missouri is paradise. It has tornadoes, it has humidity that will find you in July, and plenty of its counties have exactly the same septic and road rules everybody else has. What it has that the famous 5 are losing is the thing nobody can manufacture, which is being unfashionable. Nobody is moving there because a video told them to. The ground is still priced for the people who already live nearby, rather than for an audience. That is the whole pattern, really. By the time a state is on the list has started to ruin it. Which is a slightly uncomfortable thing for me to say in a video that is itself a list, and I would rather say it than pretend otherwise. So there they are. Alaska, where the land is cheap and the freight is not. Tennessee, where the people who live there are telling you it has already happened. Arizona, where the answer changes at the county line. Maine, which will leave you alone if you can pay the winter. Wyoming, where the wind is the reputation and the water is the actual gate. And Missouri, which nobody is talking about, which is the best thing about it. If you have land in any of these, tell me what it really cost you and what the county really said, because somebody scrolling past is about to spend their savings on a guess. I am Hank. I put one of these out every single day, and this channel exists so that somebody says the quiet part out loud before you sign anything. If that is worth something to you, subscribe, and I will see you at the next one.